This is the eLearn podcast. If you're passionate about the future of education, you're in the right place. The expert guests on this show provide insights into the latest strategies, practices, and technologies for creating the most effective learning outcomes. My name's Laddick. I'm your host, and this show is sponsored by Open LMS. The eLearn podcast is sponsored by eLearn Magazine, your go-to resource for all things online learning. Click-by-click how-to articles, the latest in edtech, spotlight on successful outcomes, and trends in the marketplace. Subscribe today and never miss a post at elearnmagazine.com. And Open LMS, a company leveraging open source software to deliver effective, customized, and engaging learning experiences for schools, universities, companies, and governments around the world since 2005. Learn more at openlms.net. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the eLearn podcast. My name is Laddick. I'm really excited to see who's going to come join us today on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on X. You know, there's usually dozens of people that show up here, and so who knows who we'll have coming out of the woodwork today. But as we always know, this show is not about me; it is about my guest, who is on the screen here with me, Jazmin Webster. How are you today, Jazmin?
Doing great, Laddick. How are you?
I'm feeling good now. I'm going to be honest. This week did not start well for me, but now I feel like I'm cooking with gas again.
Awesome.
Where do we find you sitting? Because I'm assuming you're not floating above a table, couple pieces above you.
No, you can always find me with Scrabble. You can. I keep Scrabble in my back pocket when I travel. So yeah.
Nice. Wait. Before you tell us where you are, Scrabble or bananagrams? Like, what's the
Scrabble? The pieces.
100%.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta have it.
Cool. So where are you?
Yes, I am from Belleville, Illinois, which is a small town outside the Metro St. Louis area. And I grew up here in this area and moved back in 2021 after reflecting on life and wanting to spend more time with family. But this is where I'm at.
Nice. I love it. And we're recording this for everybody, for posterity when they hear it. We're recording this sort of in the middle of June 2024. And I assume you're full summer now, or?
Oh yeah. It's full summer. Yeah. It's 80s and above from this point forward.
Fantastic. So set the stage for us. We're going to talk about how you make e-learning social, or more importantly, why you should make e-learning social. Tell us about how you got here. Who are you? Who do you work for? Why are you the person to be talking about social e-learning?
Absolutely. So I work for a global pharmaceutical company that's based in Denmark. And this global company, we represent 10 countries around the globe. We have multiple sites. And when it's time to have our virtual training sessions and our e-learnings, we try the best that we can to ensure the employees have an engaging experience. And I've worked with this company now for just about 8 years. And over the course of these last 8 years, we've noticed that there's an increase in engagement when we offer opportunities for employees to collaborate with each other. And not only in the virtual setting, but also when we offer e-learning opportunities. There could be a myth out there that says that e-learning is an individualized activity where you need to sit alone at your computer, go through a module, take a quiz, and then, reflect on life. Why did I sit here for the past 30, 40 minutes and take this e-learning, and what am I going to do with it? But you're by yourself. So, we wanted to take an innovative approach to change that.
How did we get there? I think what you just described is, obviously I don't have data sitting here in front of me, but like my intuition, right? Like sort of the gut data from the gut is telling me, there was this promise that happened obviously pre-pandemic. I mean, I've been doing this stuff for quite a while now, talking about online learning and how we do it better, et cetera. There is this assumption that, all right, great, now we're going to deliver learning through a computer or a mobile device or something like that. And that means that we can do that in the flow of work, or, we don't break learners away from their work, or, we can do it better, faster, more efficient, those kinds of things. But here now you're saying a social component is actually something that we want. So how did we get to that place? And where are you starting to see the evidence, obviously in your company, of people saying, actually, I prefer to be with humans?
Absolutely. So, it comes from the background of communities of practice. So I'm going to pause for a second and ask you a question. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what was the first community that you ever participated in?
Wow. That's, I
Mhm.
mean, are you talking like way back in the day, or you would like
Just period. What was the first community you ever participated in?
it was, I'm going to think elementary school, like like that would be like a classroom in an elementary school, maybe a
Maybe.
church group.
Maybe.
Um,
Yeah.
Probably,
Keep it
I
in
don't know if you're
mind.
considering family part of a community group.
Yeah. Look at that. You're
Okay.
getting hot. There you are. Yes. 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 Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. I mean, siblings then, I only got
Mhm.
one, but like
Mhm.
for other people who have bigger families, like I would say the
Mhm.
family unit, most of us don't think of family as community, but it's definitely a type of community, especially for those of us who have more larger extended families. That's definitely a community. I mean,
100%.
those are my answers. That's
And you're
it's been a
sticking
long
to it.
time.
And you're sticking to it. You were absolutely right. Yes, your family unit is the very first community that most of us probably participated in as we're growing up. And when you participate in a family community, think about, you're learning lessons in life, how to navigate life challenges, how to prepare meals for yourself, how to, take care of your personal hygiene, all those things you learn from your family. And they didn't bring out an SOP or a manual and say, all right, you're going to get the soap, you're going to rub it 3 times in the towel. And it didn't bring out a manual to show you what to do in those cases. So, learning about life and experiences comes from the first community you ever participated in, which is your family.
Mm,
So, when we think about the definition of a community, or we think about a community of practice, Etienne Wenger did some research on communities of practice. And a community of practice is a group of people who share a concern or passion about something that they do, and they learn how to do it better while they're interacting regularly. So there's several pieces of this definition that we're going to break down. So
okay. Yeah,
first of
please.
all, they share a concern or a passion about something. So that's what brings us together. We are a family unit. We are a community in a neighborhood. We are a department or organization, a cohort or a classroom. There's some common element that brings us together, that thing that we want to learn something about, or something that we want to be able to do. So the second piece of that is they have to be passionate. They have to be passionate about that thing, which means in most cases, you have a target in mind or a goal, something that you're trying to achieve when you're with these people, when you're together. When you're together as a family, maybe you're going to prepare a meal together, or you're going to celebrate a tradition together. Or if you're in the workplace, you're going to do a project together. There's some type of goal that you have that you're passionate about. And the third piece of it is that you have to be able to interact regularly. So when you're interacting regularly, the word that I would put with that is practice. So I think hopefully you're seeing where I'm going with this. We've got a group of people who's a community who is practicing something regularly, which leads to that definition of community of practice.
Mm,
So this research that Etienne Wenger did really showed that the social element of learning was necessary in order for us to make progress and to keep each other motivated as we're learning something.
absolutely.
So, this research kind of ties in with what improvements we can make when we think about solo learning opportunities. And the first solo learning opportunity that comes to mind is some type of e-learning event that someone might be exposed to.
Hmm.
So this interacting regularly is where we're headed. So,
Okay.
yes, we're talking about this e-learning event. So how many times do you typically take an e-learning if you were given one to do?
Okay, so when you say how many times do I take it,
Yeah.
um, uh, are you saying how many times do I go back to the course? Do I like try to do it all in one sitting? Do I try to, do I come back regularly, or is it how many times, like, am I looking for, I take the basic course, then I take the intermediate course, then I take like, which one are you like?
The latter. So how many times would you say if you were given an e-learning event and you were said, okay, you were told, okay, you need to take this training for compliance purposes, for safety reasons. This is the course that you need to go and take. How many times would you actually access that information and take that training?
Well, if it's compliance training, probably once. If I'm completely honest. Right?
Exactly. And the world, I may not have mentioned this in when I introduced myself, but the world that I live in is in quality and compliance. So for us, the quality and compliance world, most times individuals want to take the training and be done. If you have a safety requirement or a health authority requirement where you need to go and do this e-learning, they want to get in and they want to get out, and they really don't want to come back and visit this e-learning again. So for us, the retention of knowledge is important, and also reinforcement of knowledge. Changing behavior within the learning environment, changing behavior within the industry. You need to be able to reinforce the behaviors that you desire to see. So with that said, the interacting regularly piece of social learning is what we wanted to include more of when we think about e-learning design.
Fantastic. I love it. Speaking of social, I just want to make sure before it fades too far in the back, I want to give a shout out to Janelle P, who I don't know if you saw it there. She popped on the screen there. She said, Team Scrabble agreed. I'm not sure if this is a colleague of yours. She knows who you are, but I wanted to just give a shout out to her. That's great.
Yes.
Take me to the next step. So if we with a community of practice, like where. It's a term I've heard forever, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's a term many people have heard forever. What are, the ways that that you would counsel us to build communities of practice, to find communities of practice, to seek them out? And also, actually, I'm just remembering now, I want to dial it back that you said a community of practice is a group of people who are looking for, they work on a common goal.
Yes.
Talk to me about this. Mm-hmm. And I hope this is not too contrarian, I actually think that one of the great things about a community of practice are people who are passionate about a topic, and there may not necessarily be a goal, but they're passionate about that topic. And that's why they want to come together to hear about what other people's work they're doing, to, discover new practices, to, do whatever. And so maybe there is an overarching goal of let's, improve each other by, lifting all boats or something like that, but not necessarily a singular outcome for that community to practice. And so, and I'm just thinking of gaming communities, of, you think of like role-playing communities, like cosplay communities, like all of these different kinds of communities. Those are communities of practice where people aren't necessarily having a singular learning goal or a singular goal, but they're, would you agree with that?
I completely agree. And there should be an or between that in that statement. So absolutely, that they could have a shared concern or passion, or they could have a common goal or a common objective. And when you think about even a gaming community, the common goal or objective is that they want to all enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. So I don't think anyone's going to be in the community if they don't want to enjoy the game. So we could even go that far and say that your goal in this community is to enjoy the game, or to test all the features of the game and break it. But right. there is some enjoyment that's going to come out of that, some satisfaction that's going to come out of that for you. So you're still in the community for some type of in something that you're passionate about. So I would say the two are still very connected, and that could be an or statement. You could have 100%. A target or a goal, or you could just have a passion or an interest, a vested interest in a specific topic.
So as someone who's passionate about communities of practice, you're building them in your organization that you're working for right now, and you've obviously seen them around. And I know that you spoke about this at ATD recently. Tell us about, what are your best practices for defining them, for initiating them, for energizing them, and or do they have a lifespan? Is there an arc of a community of practice where it's like, hey, this doesn't have to last forever? Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are some basic elements that you should consider when you're building or considering to implement communities of practice. So the first step, of course, is you can't have a community without the people. So who are going to be your participants? And I'm so glad that you thought about or mentioned that, how do you keep the life cycle of a community going? Because that comes down to the people that are in the community that have been invited to participate. In most communities of practice, there is a core group of individuals who are really responsible for the logistics of the community, the forward mission, the ensuring that the community is meeting regularly and interacting, and also following up on the engagement and feedback that's coming from other members of the community. So when we think about the format or the structure of the actual community itself, there's going to be that core team. Then there would be another group who you may consider subject matter experts, or people who have interest in the community itself or the content, but may not be ready to take on a core team role. And then you have supporters, those people that say, you know what? This community is a great one. I want to tap into their resources. I'm going to share their resources with others. I'm going to keep them in mind when someone asks me a question about e-learning. I'm going to go to that community and I'm going to send them there. So they're a supporter. They may not always participate in events or in discussions, but they're a supporter of the idea and the concept of that community. So the first step is to define your audience. Who's going to be in this community? When we think about e-learning, we can tie that directly to the target training audience and also the audience, your stakeholders who you develop the content for. So I'm talking to the designers out there. I know there's some in the room. So if you're a designer, think about who is your target audience that's going to receive this training, and also think about your key stakeholders who you're designing this training for. What is the business objective that links back to this training? Who are those business unit stakeholders that need to know about this e-learning? So first step, the community, link it with the audience when we're thinking about e-learning. Second step, that would be to think about, well, what is that mission? What is that passion? And being very clear and concise about it. So you brought up a great point that said, it may not always be a target or a goal that the community is trying to achieve collectively, or may not be the same learning objective. There could be multiple learning objectives, but whatever it is, it has to be very clear so that the members know what they're buying into. What is it that they're buying into to participate in? Does this still link with what my passions are? Does this community still make sense for me to be a part of it? An example, we have a learning management system community, which is basically all the administrators of our global LMS system who are together on a Teams chat channel, and we talk about different issues. We meet regularly, and we have topics that are brought to us through our community forum. Mm-hmm. So this community, they have a vested interest because they want to make sure they know how to use the system. They also want to support the end users of the system. So they're a user, but they're also an admin. They have extra permissions in the system that would allow them to see things that other users wouldn't. So, this admin community really has the time and the opportunity to interact regularly through the platforms that we have available to us, and that's how we would be able to make that connection, that shared passion, that shared mission that we have in terms of using the system in the proper way and in the compliant way. So we talked about the community, the people. We talked about having that passion, being clear so that we know what is it that what members of the community are striving towards, whether it's the passion, goal, target. And then the last piece is the regular piece, interacting regularly, which I started to touch on a little bit. How do we ensure that the community can interact regularly? First, I would say you need to utilize what tools and resources you have available to you. Communities of practice is really, in my opinion, a very smart business model to incorporate in your strategy because it's very low cost. I mean, the only cost you have associated with it is the time that it takes to make sure you're interacting regularly with your community. So interacting regularly for me would look like chatting on Teams, providing tips on my Teams channel to my LMS admin community regarding tips, or if there was a challenge that happened recently for a particular site or an admin, we can post the challenge in the Teams channel, and we can discuss it and bring that to our next forum when we have our next meeting. So ensuring that there is that core team scheduling the interactions regularly, and also someone on the core team who could add questions to the forum to prompt the discussion. So sometimes it can be as simple as just going in and posing a question. How do you do that? Or why do we do that? Or what's the reason that we have this report? Anyone found any workaround to finding a better way to report this information? And just asking the questions can come from someone who's willing to go in and drive conversation when it's needed. So prompting that interaction regularly is that third piece, that third element that would help you. So to bring us back to e-learning with this, when we think about the community, we said we would have that target audience for the e-learning. When we think about the passion, or we think about the objective or the target, it's completing the e-learning, or it would also be mastering the information that the e-learning has to offer. So if I use a safety e-learning as an example, if we had a safety e-learning community of practice, I could see and envision that the users or the individuals who would take this training, they would access it. They would be able to interact and ask questions. And this would not be a one-time event, as we started talking about earlier. This would not be a opportunity where they would access the information one time and be done. This would be an opportunity for them to speak with their peers, get advice and tips on what to do in case a situation occurs. The questions that are formulated in the e-learning would prompt the discussion. This would not be one of those multiple choice, true, false type of e-learnings where you're going to listen to a 5-minute, video and then answer a couple questions. So, yeah.
I love it. No, I love it. So, yeah. And so do you advocate building a community of practice around each individual kind of training, or is it, like you said, like it's a topic, sort of safety, and then you're bringing those topics in there? Like I'm trying to think, especially in like a larger organization, like I'm sure you're working for, like a larger, one that's dispersed geographically, as well as many different themes and many different divisions. Talk to me about that piece.
Sure. So, with any type of e-learning that you would design, you want to make the right choice depending on what type of design method you want to include. So communities of practice may not apply in every scenario. If you have a topic that is fairly broad, that is something like safety or compliance, or maybe it's you create a certain product and you have a design team who needs to collaborate. You could have a community for that. However, when you're creating this community, it's important to ensure I would say that it's important to ensure that the topic matches that model. So if there is a social element, if there's a part where you can incorporate discussion, or you see that your audience is interested in discussing a certain topic, this would be a kind of a key, or kind of a signal that communities of practice could work for you. So it's not for every topic, but I would also add that you could incorporate it as long as there's an opportunity for discussion.
I do like that, and I appreciate let's say the honesty or the transparency of the answer. Somebody who's advocating communities of practice, that you don't use them every time, right? It's not necessary in every case, but they can be super, super useful. I want to circle back to those myths of that e-learning is it's an individual activity and whatnot, because I know that you came to the discussion today with specific tips about how to make e-learning more social. So even in cases where maybe this is a this isn't going to be something that we're going to build a community of practice around. What are the other tips that you have for making individual e-learning or individual types of e-learning more social?
Sure. So, the first tip is think about the experience over the electronic. So when I hear e-learning, most of the time people equate e with electronic, and you can shift that mindset and shift it over to experience. So when you're creating e-learning, think about the experience that the individual is going to go through. You can include interactions, you can add characters, you can include prompts for discussion, but it's also about the social experience that the individual will have as they navigate this information. So one of the things I would take into consideration is what is going to be your platform. Are you going to do this as a standalone LMS or LXP type of program? Are you going to do this in a virtual setting? How are you going to link the community with the e-learning? Is it going to be all in one platform, or will you use a combination of platforms? As I mentioned, in my company, we have a learning management system, but we also have the advantage of our more social platform, which is Microsoft Teams. So we can utilize Teams to connect the social element with the learning. We also have another platform based in Promote, which is used for leadership development training. And for that leadership development training, Promote allows you to have all the modules and the social element in one place. So you can have conversations with your colleagues and peers. You can watch videos. You can review articles. You can do all of that within one platform. So taking into consideration what information you're going to what needs to be received, and also taking into consideration what platform you're going to use, or what multiple platforms you'll need to use to make that social learning element happen.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
Go ahead. There's one. I think there's one more, isn't there?
Yeah, there's another one. So another thing in terms of the online element, with communities of practice, I really thank you again for mentioning that when members come to the community, they may have a different objective in mind. So when you're structuring the community, you want to allow that for that flexibility. So it's important that you allow users and community members to come with their varying perspectives. So the number one thing that a community is founded on is trust. When you join a community, you have to feel comfortable enough to share that information and be open to feedback. So, we have to create a conducive space that will allow for a member of the community to feel safe enough to share and feel comfortable enough to get into these discussions. Sometimes, we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable in order to get to growth. So growth happens when we're outside of our comfort zone. But in order to feel welcome, you have to start somewhere, right? So first place to start is getting that trust built within your community space to know that, hey, you're coming here, we're all learning together. This isn't me teaching you or you teaching me. This is us learning together as a community. So that trust element is really important in terms of establishing a community of practice. And, it does take time. This is not something, a community is not something that's built overnight. Rome was not built in a day. We've heard that statement before. So, we know communities are not going to happen, at the snap of a finger, or you write up this project plan and boom, you got a community. It takes practice, and it also takes time to develop that community and also to build that trust with your group who's going to be participating.
Love it. And I would just want to let you know that David Colmayer is agreeing with you in terms of getting outside your comfort zone being the first step to growth. And also, Janelle P is also weighing in again, saying psychological safety is super crucial as well. Let me follow up with that. First, actually, before I do that, would you just do me the favor of enumerating those three? What are the 3 points, the 3 tips that you just had real quick?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So tip number 1, you need to establish your community. So you need to identify who is your group that will be participating in your community of practice. And the second tip is connecting that community with a common purpose or a common passion, or it could be a common goal or target. And then the third piece is understanding how you're going to interact regularly. So how are you going to ensure that the community members are connected on a regular basis so that they have the opportunity to have that exchange of knowledge and also have the opportunity to give each other feedback? So if you cannot do that all in one platform, consider what other platforms you could use or combine in order to make that happen with your e-learning.
Fantastic. I apologize for chuckling while you were explaining that. I'm getting chided by I think your colleagues for mispronouncing their names. So that's just the way it is. It's the live without a net problem.
No worries.
Wonderful. I love it. We've been able to, one thing that I like to do on the podcast, and I just want to do this here as well, is challenge you to come up with, what are some of the breaking points? What are some of the resistance points? What are some of the barriers to communities of practices happening, especially since you have the perspective of, a larger organization to put them in, right? I can see, bureaucratic layers. I could see, hey, silos within the organization. I can just kind of engender a whole bunch of these right now. Like, what are some of the common barriers that you've seen to making communities of practice effective and work? And how would you overcome them?
Absolutely. So I would say one of the most common barriers is that, when you have a global organization as the one I work in, each group can move faster when they are solo. And I'll take us back to this statement. You can go fast alone, but you're only going to go far as a group. So the issue sometimes can be the desire to move quickly because of business targets or business needs. And when you need to involve a community in any type of decision making or discussion, that requires a slower approach. I actually heard some feedback earlier that there was a community established and they decided to keep it small because they wanted to be able to move quickly. And in my opinion, I would say that you're missing out on the diverse perspectives that you could get if you were to broaden your community than keeping it small and finite. And this would be probably one of the biggest pushbacks, is that when you're establishing a community, how do you choose who participates, who's at what decision-making level, how often are these individuals meeting? Are these meetings adding value to the organization, or are they taking away from those users' time to actually participate and do their primary job? So, again, my opinion, communities, if you're a part of a community, it should be written into your job description. When you come in and you're going to be a part of the learning management team, well, that means you need to participate in the community. So that's one. However, the counter to that is like, if you want people to join this community on their own, they're probably more vested and more likely to be giving to this community if it's something that they're passionate about, something that they have found a way to connect their interests and their desires, whether it's professional development or personal development, to this community. So I would say that's one of the challenges, is identifying the individuals, making sure, and second challenge would be making sure that the time spent in the community is value added to the organization. And another challenge potentially could be any language barriers that you may have. So if you're working in a global community, yes, most global companies share a common language for communication, but when you are interacting socially, there can be other challenges there. But thanks to technology, we've got transcription, we've got AI that can help us, we've got translation tools. There's many ways we can get around that, especially if you're looking at it from an e-learning perspective. The translations piece is really going to help you out.
100%. And dovetailing with that, in terms of a multi-country situation or environment, Janelle P is asking about how about barriers when working within multi-country for scheduling. So talk to me about how you have either done that. Is it a simple round robin of, hey, sometimes we'll do it in the morning, sometimes we'll do it in the evening to accommodate everybody, or what other ways have you gone about it?
That's a great question. Yeah, we have tried the approach of both of trying to find the most optimal time for communities to meet in relation to time zones, and also we're very much, I would say, we have a very accommodating culture at our company, in that the working hours for the Asia Pacific time zone are sometimes shifted later to ensure that they can participate. And we also offer other sessions, other community gathering sessions that are spanned across the European and Asian time zone. So we've tried both, Janelle and everybody else, whoever else is interested, we've tried both. But in most cases, we've been very flexible and accommodating, across the globe to ensure people can participate.
Nice.
Yes.
Jazmin, it's amazing how fast 35 minutes goes, but it's time
When
for
we're
us to
having
wrap up.
fun and we're so cool like you. Right?
Thank you very much to everybody who's participated today. Especially there, you can see on the screen, Dr. Oh, it went down, and I need to look at the name, Dr. Marty Casey. She says Jazmin rocks. I want to give a shout out that we talked about in the green room before we started the podcast today, that you are going to be at the 2024 Chicago eLearning and Technology Showcase in August. So for those of us who are here right now listening, or those who are going to be listening to the recording in the near future, please feel free to come by and talk with Jazmin more about building communities of practice. There's one more question from Dr. Marty that we need to ask, though. And she's asking, I'm working with a group that is very set in their ways. So could a community of practice be a new and fun way to introduce this group to change?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We all love change. We all love change. So you tell us about that.
That's a great question, Dr. Marty. And I have to give my cousin a shout out. This is my cousin that's on. So,
nice. I love it.
We have a very special connection. Yes.
First community came right back to
right here, right back. The community comes right back. Absolutely. So when we think about introducing change to a group, communities of practice helps with building relationships. So when you're taking a group through a change, it's important to have that level of trust established. So having a cohort or a community or a group of people who are interested and passionate about what information is changing, this could be a very good way to help them to collaborate and to build trust. So I would strongly support utilizing communities of practice as a way to introduce a group to change, for sure.
Fantastic. Jazmin Webster, this has been a fantastic conversation today around demystifying that e-learning is an individual practice, but it's actually something that you can make very, very social, and more specifically through communities of practice. Thank you so much for taking time out of your, I'm sure, very, very busy day to speak with me today, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Ladek. You take care, and thanks for having me. This is a great experience.